So I need to make an exhaust for this motorcycle I'm making. The old exhaust is right here. It's got a little taper up here where it's thicker up here and tapers down to a thinner pipe there. And it's got a little lip here to catch this guy, which then holds it onto the engine. So I need to make this little section here and one of these guys. I don't have the appropriate tubing bender die for the size pipe I need, because what we need is 1 1/4 inch. So instead, I'm actually excited because we're going to do pie cuts on this thing instead, which should be pretty labor intensive. I don't know why I'm excited about it, but I've never done it before, that's why I'm excited. And so that means cutting a series of little pie cuts on this guy and then weld them together after we sort of shape them in the shape we want on the actual bike. And that's how we'll get our bend in the exhaust. All right, so starting with this guy here, I need to measure that thing so I can figure out how big my new one needs to be. 2 3/4. All right, finally, it fits in there. All right, now I want to cut 2 little pieces off the end of this guy. We got 2 little rings. I'm gonna make this into 1 ring. Basically, I need to make it just a little bit bigger so it'll fit around this guy, and then we'll sort of weld and hammer that thing in place where we want it. But for right now, I need to clean these up, so that means file action. Getting in here, working on these things. All right, we got 2 of these guys now. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna cut 1, and then break it open, and I'll use pieces off of the other one to fill in the gaps so I can make the thing bigger. Alright, so we need a piece about that big to go in there. Alright, so my next step is welding this bit on here. In order to sort of align everything, I'm going to utilize this other ring here as like an alignment tool. That on there, and that spaces everything. Sort of allows me to line this guy up on there so it's in line with the rest of the ring. All right, so here we are. We've now got a start to our exhaust. This is the very beginning. All right, so before I can get this thing onto the bike, I need to shorten it up. So I've gone ahead and marked it here and go ahead and cut it right there. There's a little stub sticking out, and then we'll start making pie cuts and whatnot to weld on the end there. All right, so here's our piece so far. Now we try and fit it up on here. And so that's that. That is the idea there, and I'm realizing now that I made a mistake. I have welded this thing on the wrong side. Should have welded it on this side instead of that side. So I'm going to fix that by taking it to the lathe, and we're going to neaten out this side so it's nice and straight like this side. Alright, there we are. This thing's got a nice flat edge to it now on the one side, on both sides now, so that when this thing goes on there, it'll sit nice and flat and have something solid to push against. All right, so now on this guy here, this is as far as we've gotten so far. I need to put the little 2 holes in the side, like this guy here, so I'm gonna measure, transfer it onto here. All right, next we've got to cut the edges off of this thing so it's more oval-like. There it is on the actual bike. Everything seems to fit. All right, so to begin making our pie cuts come together to something we actually want and like and love, I'm going to use some tape, just basic masking tape here, and tape it together in a couple of spots, and then we'll tack weld it, and then we'll take the tape off. So So there's one side there, just some tape on the back side. And we'll do some tape on the inside. Piece right here. Push these all together and then throw some tape in here. Now we got some tape in there to give it some nice stability. And now I can play with like making sure everything is lined up just perfectly. And then go ahead, throw some tacks in there, some tacks in there. And we'll have the beginning of something cool. All right, and then with the tape off and this thing cooled down, now we can go ahead and clean it up. I'm gonna use some mineral spirits to get the adhesive off of that thing. Because right at the moment it's nice and sticky. Now we can begin to see why these things are fun to make. If you're at all the type of person that can get lost in meticulous detail and just sort of zone out, get in the flow and stuff, like this is fun. Because there's all this little tiny intricate work that involved in just cutting these and then cleaning them up, and it takes time, but it's really simple to do and quite enjoyable to just space out on. And then you get to this part and it's a nice little detail. Now what I'm going to do is weld these together with just fusion weld. I'm not going to add any extra filler rod and whatnot onto these. You're going to see these beautiful little teeny tiny welds on this, and it's a lot of fun, man. It's this little detail work over and over again, and it's fun. It's fun. So my next step is to fully weld these up, weld around them, and get them nice and solid. All right, so here it is, our final piece. You can see little tiny welds on there. Aren't they pretty? So yeah, I'm super stoked with this, and this is a ton of fun to make these things. Time consuming, yes, but a lot of fun. And you'll note that I'm making this in steel. A lot of guys are making these in stainless, titanium, that sort of thing. And so, but I'm using just straight carbon steel on this, just basic cheap carbon steel. The reason I'm doing that is because A, this is the first time I've ever done this sort of exhaust. I don't want to waste money on expensive materials, and so this is a nice way to try this out. So let's continue, see if we can actually make a whole exhaust. So here's our piece here so far. This is our initial piece that goes up into the engine and gets held in by this guy here. And this goes on to the cylinder head. All right, then that holds everything on there. And then we've got our little piece here that we started to bend out from here. I'm gonna sort of play with this and see what angle, because now we can start doing stuff like turning this way or that way, however we want, and adding more pieces to it to shape this thing. This is like playing with clay or something. So I've got these two pieces, and I think I want it to go something like this. All right, I'm using this board to get this pipe straight and level with the frame. So now with that, this is my sort of elongated pipe that's gonna go down the side there. And now it's time to start figuring out how these are going to go on. All right, so I've got this little piece here tacked in, and I've got this thing spaced and everything off of the frame with a couple of spacers. And I've got it spaced up a little bit with some spacers, and now I believe I'm about prepped to get this guy in there. I'm just gonna tack this stuff in here, and then we'll take it off the bike, make sure it actually functions and comes off the bike, and then we'll weld stuff up more fully. Look at that. It's practically an exhaust, dude. That is pretty sweet. Check that out. Awesome. All right, so now I'm gonna wire brush this thing, clean it up, and then go ahead and weld this thing. Ooh, still a bit warm. So not the best welding ever, but still pretty thrilled with it. This is still a lot of fun. Let's try it on the bike. There it is so far. I'm pretty happy with that. I still gotta do a bend at the back here. And now, I wanna kick it out to the side here with another little bend. And then, because I want it to line up with this pipe here. All right, so I've got the board back out again to hold up this exhaust piece here. Now what I want to do is sort of follow the wishbone line of the bike there and run it up through this exhaust, draw a line there and cut that thing so it's at an angle. There's a nice little piece of metal. That should help us get where we want to go. There we go. All right, now we got our cut line. That's beautiful. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this guy. All right, let's check this out real quick. Oh yes, my friends. Oh yes, that is stylish. That is brilliant. Look at that exhaust. Check it out, man. Check that exhaust out. Simple exhaust, and it's very basic. There's not a whole lot. It's very small. Not a whole lot to it, but try to add some style. Try to add some flair. Look at that. Look at the lines on it, man. Look at the lines. The lines are the most important part of any design. Check that out. I'm happy with that. I gotta build a little bracket. I gotta finish welding the stuff, build a little bracket to hold it down here somewhere underneath. And then I wanna put like a baffle thing in here as well eventually, because this is a straight pipe and it's a bigger pipe than what the stock exhaust was in terms of diameter. And so less restriction on the engine, I'm afraid that's not gonna be good for the engine. So I want to have the option of putting a little baffle thing in the end here, so we'll work on that in another video.